15. The number of those who have recovered has increased from the previously reported 343 to 472. And unfortunately, we have deaths which have increased from 19 to 26. The cumulative number of confirmed cases has risen by 65.6% just in the past week, from 1,034 to 1,713. While the cumulative number of confirmed local cases is risen by 204.9%, that is from 286 to 872. Most of the local cases are in Bulawayo and Harare. Bulawayo has 490, Harare is 212. Preventative and control measures against COVID-19 will be intensified in order to avoid overwhelming the health delivery system through the mandatory and correct donning of masks. Government will be seeking to impose stiffer penalties for the non-wearing of masks. His Excellency, the President Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, will be issuing directives regarding the way forward in the management of the COVID-19 response. Government wishes to inform the nation that most of the COVID-19 cases are asymptomatic and can be isolated at home or in isolation facilities. On a related matter, Matete Hospital, a private institution in Bulawayo, has developed and equipped an 18-bed COVID-19 critical care facility. The Ministry of Health and Child Care will enter into an MOU with Matete Hospital so that critically ill COVID-19 positive cases from the public sector can be admitted and treated at no cost to the patient. Then Cabinet received an update on the gastrointestinal disease outbreak in Luveve, Bulawayo. The Minister of Local Government and Public Works updated Cabinet on the gastrointestinal disease outbreak in Luveve, where a total of 1,900 cases had been attended to at health facilities. Cabinet noted that a number of interventions that have been put to contain this disease outbreak include the following: A, community awareness programs; B, engagement of local leadership and community structures to help sensitize communities; C, waiving of water shedding in the affected areas; D, conducting door-to-door surveys to actively identify diarrhea cases and systematic sampling of diarrhea cases and testing them also for COVID-19. The Cabinet received a presentation on the principles for the Copper Control Amendment Bill from the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs on principles to amend and strengthen the Copper Control Act, Chapter 14.06. The upsurge in cases of vandalism and theft of copper cables and transmission equipment across the country has necessitated the amendments to this act. The thefts have resulted in destruction of ZESA, Tel1, and National Railways of Zimbabwe infrastructure. Also loss of revenue as well as loss of lives, in some instances due to accidents involving naked and exposed power cables. The resultant toll on the economy in general cannot be overemphasized. The amendments seek to institute stiffer penalties in order to curb the theft of copper and related products and thereby safeguard the critical infrastructure. In more detail, the amendment bill will seek, among other provisions, to criminalize A, vandalism of equipment and theft of power transmission cables; B, dealing in stolen copper; C, all dealership without possession of certificate of origin for all the copper they deal in, and specify also the penalties for these offenses. The mandatory sentence for those found dealing illegally in copper will be 30 years. The Cabinet also received a report on the proposed ratification of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Cabinet approved and proposed ratification of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which was presented by the Attorney General in a global treaty intended to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effects of mercury and its compounds. Zimbabwe signed this convention containing a legally binding instrument on mercury on 10th January 2013. As at 18th June 2020, 128 countries had signed the convention, while 115, including 50 African countries except Zimbabwe, had ratified the same. Some of the provisions of the convention are as follows: a ban on new mercury mines and the phasing out of existing mines, the regulation of mercury releases from boilers, incinerators, and power stations, the exchange of information on mercury-free alternatives, and the management of mercury waste in an environmentally friendly manner. The convention includes the development of appropriate strategies for identifying and assessing sites contaminated by mercury, possibly remedies to protect populations that are at risk, the promotion and facilitation of public information dissemination on the effects of mercury, and a provision for states to register for special actions. Then Cabinet also received a report on the devolution and decentralization policy. The Minister of Finance and Economic Development, Honorable Professor Mthuli Ncube, presented the devolution and decentralization policy, and this was approved by Cabinet as part of the National Development Strategy 2020-25 formulation. As part of that National Development Strategy 2020 to 2025 formulation process, the policy establishes the necessary conditions for provincial and rural district council as well as other lower tier governance and administrative structures to exercise devolved powers. Contributions from provincial and district sectors encapsulated in provincial economic development plans will accomplish the Vision 2030 requirement for provincial and district gross domestic product values and their contribution to the national GDP to be specified in the country's economic indicators. In essence, therefore, the national GDP will be the sum total of provincial GDPs. Most notably, the devolution and decentralization policy ensures a participative bottom-up approach to development from the village, ward, district, and provincial levels all the way to the national level. In accordance with Section 264, subsection 2 of the Constitution, the devolution and decentralization policy seeks to achieve the following objectives, among others: facilitation of democratic participation of people in making decisions that will affect them, promotion of good governance, maintenance of Zimbabwe as a single and peaceful state, enhancement of citizens' participation in the management of their local affairs and development, provision of a mechanism for resource sharing, and capacitation of the lower tiers of government. Implementation of the policy will entail the development of fiscal distribution formula designed to achieve equitable development in all sub-nations of our government. Meanwhile, the current 5% of fiscal revenues being availed to the sub-national tiers are subject to program-based funding requirements, which are being applied to central government entities by Treasury. Local area programs and projects are already being funded from this fiscal revenue stream. The empowerment of sub-national entities will be supervised through policies and acts of parliament which are consistent with the Constitution. Consequently, some sections of the Constitution will be amended and the enabling legislation aligned to the Constitution. The governance structures proposed by the policy will enhance local governance decision-making and promote the rapid development of local economies through leveraging of local resources to fund specific development programs and priorities. Capacity building is emphasized in order to promote successful implementation of this policy. The government The Cabinet received a report on His Excellency Comrade President's tour of coal and coking coal projects in Hwange from the 16th July to the 17th. The Minister of Mines and Mining Development, Honorable Chitandu, briefed Cabinet on His Excellency's tour of 9 coal and coking coal projects in Hwange. This was to assess progress being made in the implementation of the Coal and Hydrocarbons Development Plan. Cabinet appreciated the significant progress recorded to date, noting that the projects represent the successes being achieved under the ongoing economic reform program. The projects show that Zimbabwe is on course to attain its goal of being a net exporter of energy by 2023 and to be fuel sufficient by 2030 through development of energy minerals. The President commissioned the coke oven battery, which came into operation at South Mining in November 2018. Another success story is the integrated production project, which has projects that are almost ready for commissioning. Zambezi Gas is working on an integrated project to produce 700 megawatts of electricity from its coal mine. The company is 100% indigenously owned and is professional in its approach, as evidenced by its remarkable rehabilitative works. Zimbabwe Jongjin Coking Company is advanced towards producing 430 megawatts from its Sinamatela coal field, and the enabling agreement to finalize the works was signed during this tour. Western Area's coal mine is on course to produce 750 megawatts. Other benefits of the projects include electricity exports, coal mineral products beneficiation and exports, explosives, lime, stainless steel and other products for domestic use as well as exports, and extensive employment creation. Other projects which the President toured are Tsingshan Integrated Production, Hwange Colliery Company, and Makomo Resources. Together with other new coal and power initiatives in Binga, Zimbabwe has over 5,000 megawatts of power production in the pipeline. These projects will see Zimbabwe being not only self-sufficient in electrical power by 2023, but subsequently being a net exporter of electricity. I thank you for listening. Thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. And now it's time for members of the meeting to pose questions. Your choice. Any status? You are okay? Because you wanted to start off. Right?
My name is Blessed Mtana from Arkansas TV and Radio. I wanted to find from the Minister of Finance. I didn't hear any discussion in terms of the state of the economy and the crisis that the people are facing. Is that Cabinet didn't discuss about this, and does it not concern the struggles and the failures that of the people to afford basics in this, especially around this COVID issue going on?
Okay. Any other initiator? You don't want me to go to the second round, so yeah? Yes, please.
Abigail Temple from ZBC. Mine is directed to the Minister of Higher and Teacher Education, who is also the acting Minister of Health. Why is it that we don't have anything in place towards maybe a system to track the COVID-19 cases, seeing that we are recording a lot of local transmissions? Isn't it time that we have tracking devices in as far as who has the virus or not?
Okay, thank you. Okay.
My name is Aaron Yamayaro from H Metro. My question is directed to the Minister of Health. What is being done at roadblocks where security agencies are facing challenges with our vision facilities? Thank you.
Okay. Last one, any volunteer? Okay, so we, for the first round, I think we come to the end of my comments.
And thank you very much for the questions. First question is Blessed Kang, Heart and Soul. And Blessed, your question, I'm sure the minister will probably but it's not really related to any of the issues I raised here. But he would like to know if there was any discussion on the struggles and failure in the areas of people to access spaces. Minister.
More freedom in speaking. Blessed, thank you very much for your question. We did not tackle it this week in the way that you have asked it, which is overall economic issues. But we did discuss a part of the economy. And that part of the economy was the mining sector, in the form of the coals or hydrocarbon sector. The mining sector, which is a key part of the economy, is the largest export revenue generator. It generates 60% of our earnings as an economy. So we discussed the economy in that respect. But what does this sector do? In terms of the hydrocarbon, which is a subset of the mining sector, it is various facets to it, and the Minister of Mines can go into detail on that. But what we saw in one to what's going on there, that we have seen a substantial amount of investment in the production of coal, production of thermal coal, and the production of coking coal. Thermal coal is what is allowing us to produce the energy that the Information Minister has announced, which is that we could be at 5,000 megawatts by year 2023 and become a net exporter. That thermal coal is allowing us to do that, to invest in that. And we as government have not really invested in that. It is a private company that have done that. And that's what we expect from our foreign direct investment, to drive these investments so that it can produce goods and services. Also, this part of the economy, the hydrocarbon sector, is creating jobs. Already, we've counted easily about 5,000 jobs which have been created directly by the 9 companies that have either invested or are about to complete their investments. And you can imagine, for every job created, there's probably another job that is created, so you can double that. There's always a knock-on effect in terms of direct and indirect jobs. So that's really that part of the economy that was discussed. But of course, the question then focused on citizens not being able to afford the prices and so forth. We've always been very clear that, and it should be like that for everyone, that prices in this country are driven by the exchange rate. So dealing with the exchange rate is the key to dealing with the movement in prices, especially the power market. So the success, I think, that you can all see in terms of the efficacy and the results from the auction market speak for themselves. Today the rate was at 72.1. If you've been following it, we traded about 14, I think it was 14.5 million US dollars worth. And I think it is very pleasing today's auction that 2.5 million US dollars was offloaded by exporters. That's very good, because then the participation is widening. It should be that we need exporters to offload onto the market. So prices are relatively stable, and that's a good thing. Rather, extremely stable, that's a good thing. That will then impact on the movement of prices and then reduce the pressure on inflation that we've seen over the last couple of years. That's really the way to think about it. The exchange rate is key and so forth. If you look at what we did in the budget review, we decided not to chase the inflation. There's no supplementary budget. Yes, we do have some revenue measures, but there's no supplementary budget. We spent 46% of our budget so far. That's a very good run rate, it's below 50%. So we're able to make do with the remainder of the budget for the rest of the year. So it means that we're maintaining fiscal discipline. And number 2, there's monetary discipline. The growth in M0 high-powered money has dropped, but also there's discipline on the current account. The current account is already showing a surplus, and is going to show a surplus of $1.2 billion US dollars at year end. That's what it's had. Last year we had a surplus again for $900 million US dollars. So if you look at the twin deficits of the budget deficit, we recorded a surplus again for the first half of the year of $800 million Zimbabwe dollars. So the twin deficits have been eliminated and money supply growth is under control. So the fundamentals for a strong, stable currency, along with the auction system, are in place. So we should see a containment of price increases. But I want to say the one thing, colleagues, the exchange rate is not the economy. The economy is mining, it's manufacturing, it's agriculture, it's tourism, and the list goes on and on. It is the sectors that are the pillars of the economy. The exchange rate is merely a price. It is a price at which we exchange goods and services we produce locally with goods and services outside. Domestic prices pertain to the exchange of goods and services within borders. So these are not the economy, but they can impact the economy. They can impact agents. They can also be a product of the behavior of agents, whether they're being speculative or doing the right thing or not. I want to be clear about that. The economy is the real sector. So yes, we discuss the economy, we discuss the mining sector, we discuss the hydrocarbon sector in one here. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Mutulunyule. I think this is you are contented and many others. And I go to the next question, was from Abigail Tembo, ZBC, and is directed to the Acting Minister of Health. About she would like to know if there are any tracking devices which are being put in place to track those who may have the COVID-19 disease. Minister.
Thank you, Abigail. It's a very important question that you have asked because it enables us to explain issues. Testing is the most important activity that we can ever do. It is the testing that is giving us the statistics that we are having so that we can talk about so many people are affected and so forth and so on. It means testing is taking place. There is no silver bullet that is only technological for COVID-19. The silver bullet are the four things that we have had, which are hinging on the fact that assume that everybody close to you and yourself are infected. No matter how much blue technology, green technology, and whatever you can use, there's nothing that beats washing your hands, putting on your mask, social distance, temperature check. So, your question is so important, and this is the answer. There is nothing more silver than what I just said. Assume everybody around you, including yourself, is infected. Social distance, put on mask, wash your hands, constant temperature check. If Zimbabwe does that today, and everybody does that, we'll contain this pandemic. This is the best technology so far that we know. We can track, yes, we are developing tracking devices, for example, H9, H8, we have them. But the main issue is behavior. And once we know this, we will be able to defeat this scourge. It's behavioral. Our behavioral technology is very important in this. However, we'll back it up with any other tracking device. But the main issue is...
Thank you very much, Minister. I go to the last question. It was from Nyamayaro H Metro. And again, this is directed to you, Acting Minister of Health, is about challenges of ablution facilities in road.
Thank you very much, Nyamayaro. You are worried about the toilet. Yes, it's very important. Roadblocks by nature are not permanent. They are temporary. I don't know whether there's a specific case where we saw our security having problems, but I'm sure there's a system of rotating. So, however, it's an important point. We'll look into it because you cannot say it without having seen a problem. So, it's an important contribution. We'll look at it. Thank you.
There we go. Chief Secretary, second round.
Second round. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Madam Moira from the Yard. Making a question directly to the Honorable Minister of Finance. Was a reference to COVID-19 and that is the kind of date that civil servants received or receive $75 as COVID allowance. But what seems to be missing is the modalities to access the money. So my question is, have that been resolved? The modalities between which the civil servants will receive money, maybe by way of collaboration with the retail outlets and so forth. I think.
Okay. Any second? Anybody else? Repeat yes.
Abigail Temple from ZBC. Mine is directed to Minister Kazenda. So, Honorable Minister, we keep on hearing about the porous border posts, and now with COVID, it's really seems like it's getting out of hand. We have a lot of people getting in through trucks and the famous Mumbora. I don't know what the ministry is doing towards that.
Abigail, I missed it. Can you repeat? There was something I can hear.
Oh, okay. It's to do with the porous border posts.
Yes.
We've heard of cases where truckers are smuggling in people from South Africa, and we've also heard of people crossing using the river, Limpopo, mainly. So what is being done on that area? Because
Okay. Yes, please, then you give the last.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Tafazo Mfugulima. I'm a freelance journalist. I don't know where the question is being directed to, but we have seen the increase of police on the roadblocks, denying people access to get into town where there is a mandatory temperature checkups, sanitization of hands, social distancing, but neglecting people from the residential areas, and in the residential areas there is no wearing of masks, sanitization of hands, and temperature check. At least you are going in a supermarket. What is the government doing? Because in town, it seems like all the regulations are being followed, but in the residential areas, there is no one to enforce. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chisek. Blessed Clan again from Huddersfield TV and Radio. My question is directed to the Minister of Home Affairs. Last week, I'm sure Cabinet discussed the issue of the people from Marange who had congregated in Manicaland to have their prayer vigil. We understand that the police eventually managed to disperse all of them and no one was arrested. So my question is, why is it that the Ministry of Home Affairs or the police treat people differently? When people gathered to demonstrate in Highfield, they were arrested, actually dragged to court while they were in hospital bed for violating COVID regulation. and someone gathers more than 5,000 people in violation of COVID regulation, no one is arrested.
Okay? Over to you.
Yes, sir. All right, some interesting questions. Thank you. So my demo is directed to you, Honorable Professor Muli. It's about $75. We would like to know what are the modalities for civil servants to access that money.
No, thank you very much, Shimura, for the question. Yes, the modalities for that, for accessing the $75 have not been put in place. So what happened was the banks were very cooperative from the beginning, and they sent out messages for automatic opening of bank accounts, FCA accounts for civil servants. But for some of the banks, we had to contact them for them to open the account. So that's been done. So that was the first round. Then the second round the second step was to make sure that retailers then are able to receive a payment for goods and services. So that again, in terms of arrangement, has been put in place. And then the third step is once those two were in place, the government then went on to pay the $75, which was done largely last week. Once these modalities were put in place, so we're pleased that there's been progress on this. And of course, this allowance is tax-free. We'll make sure that when we amend the finance bill in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do that as part of the revenue measures for the interim budget review. We make sure that the $75 is tax-free as announced, so that's going to be put in place. So everything is coming together. Civil servants will be able to access the $75. You can imagine for the lowest paid civil servants, the same office order, who's currently on salary for what, prior to the 50% increase, by the way, before that, they were on a salary of what, $2,500. So at an exchange rate, they say I'll just average $5,000. So it means that individually, initially 2,500 a few weeks ago, is now earning almost close to $8,000 dollars. Surely that's quite a major increase in their income, and we think that we as government are doing our best to support the incomes of the civil servants and to make sure that we remunerate them appropriately for the hard work that they do. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Professor Tsurinade, for that. And number two, that question is directed to Minister for Farm Affairs, Honorable Kazembe. This is about the porous border force, cases of truckers, smuggling people, and what you would like to know is what are you doing? Minister?
Thank you, Chair. And I also want to thank Abigail for such a pertinent question. Yes, we are having challenges with people coming into country using undesignated points, but as law and order, we have increased presence in the known spots. But I'm sure Abigail will agree with me that our border is quite long, the perimeter of this country. So it's basically not possible to have a police officer at each and every point. But what we've done is on those known points, we have increased the number of security, we've increased security presence, and we've been arresting people who are trying to get in through those designated points. And over and above that, we are also in talking about truckers. You mentioned the issue of truckers smuggling people. Again, our police are vigilant. We've arrested a number of people. We continue to arrest people every week in, week out. But again, I want to emphasize or to add to what Professor Mugula said. We have a collective responsibility as a country. We cannot leave everything in the hands of police, especially given what I just explained, that the borders are quite long. The perimeter is quite long. Everybody has a responsibility. When these people come in, they definitely go to somewhere. They either come to your house or my house, and they mix and mingle with other people. So we have a collective responsibility to ensure that we report such people who come in through undesignated points, because as alluded to by Professor Mugwe, suspect everybody and trust no one. But that person could be COVID positive and they could be endangering everyone's life. Then I go on to the, oh, sorry. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Kazimba. I know you are ready to go. But I just wanted to give an opportunity to Minister of Finance. He wanted to add something to that question. Minister?
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just want to add something to what Honorable has explained. It's not just a job for the police to enforce things across the borders. We've also said that Zimra now should be allowed to fly drones along our borders to monitor smuggling, illegal crossings, and so forth. And this is to support the police in the first place, whose primary role is to enforce the law. So we're spreading our capacity to Zimra as well to monitor these borders using drones. And the police already have acquired some drones. We're aware of that. We've supported them financially for that. But now we want to add Zimra to the fight to use this equipment to monitor crossings across our borders. I think.
Thank you very much. And I think the next question, which the Minister of Home Affairs was ready to go for, I will start from Tafazo. The way you asked your question, people have got to wear masks because there's a police nearby. We are talking here about life and death. COVID-19 as a information and risk communication, a lot of messages have gone out there on radio, on TV. We've even gone as far as going around in all the suburbs and also farming areas and outside to just make sure every Zimbabwean is aware of the dangers of COVID-19. It is not calling for a policeman to be next to you for you to wear your mask or for you to wash your hands. Everyone out there takes you and me to make sure that we contain this disease. The messages have been going out, and we are now even including the highlights that we have more local transmissions. And that tells us that we really need to tighten those measures. Checking temperature, social distancing, washing your hands, making sure you wash your hands all the time. I was in my constituents this weekend, and people are aware of this. It's not about waiting for the policeman so that you say, okay, I will need to social distance. You need to be conscious wherever you are. We are telling people that as you go out to the public, you always have to wear your mask. That's how you can contain, and the acting minister spoke at length about that. So I just want to give, I know you really want to answer this one. Minister of Home Affairs.
Honorable Chair, I have adequately addressed the issue. Again, just to probably to add to what you've said, and again to what Professor Mugwe said, the onus is on all of us. I'm sure, I can't remember the name of the gentleman who asked this question, but I'm sure you're worried about the spread of the disease. But your worry is basically, you're worried that disease will spread, or the virus rather, will spread from one person to another. So which basically means the two people have a responsibility to avoid the spread. And the two people could be you and me. And surely, like as the Minister of Information has alluded to, there's no need for me to wait for anybody to come to me to tell me how to protect myself and to save my life. And again, it's not practical, to say the very least, to have policemen all over the show, to have the police in the residential area to monitor and temperature check people and ensure that everyone is wearing a mask. When it is our lives that we want to save, it's your life, it's my life. So, as mentioned or as articulated by the Minister of Information, we have a collective responsibility as Zimbabweans. This is a national disaster, and we need to ensure that we play our role, all of us, to ensure that we stop the spread of this disease. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you are contented. Thank you. Then I go to the last question from Blessed Butler. This is coming to you again, Minister of Home Affairs, referring to the issue of Johan Marangi, apostolic, who had congregated and that police managed to disperse them, but nobody was arrested. Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and I also want to thank Blessed for such a pertinent question. Well, there are two issues here. Whenever anyone violates COVID regulations or COVID restrictions, police officers have three options at their disposal. The first one is to inform the person to do the right thing, which is either, if people are gathered, the first thing they're supposed to do is to ask them to disperse. And if they refuse, they can either fine them or they can even send them to prison. So those two options are available. So what the police did to disperse the people in Maranga is provided for in the statutory instrument. Now we come to the second issue that he raised, that when people demonstrate, they get arrested. Now when you demonstrate, you've committed two offenses, like in the particular case that is referring to. The first one obviously is violation of the COVID regulations. If it was the only violation, or if it was the only offense that was committed, then the police could have probably asked them to disperse. But over and above that, they committed another one of demonstrating without police clearance. That's a different one altogether. So those were two offenses. So probably that's the reason why they got arrested. I think.
All right. That brings us to the end of today's post briefing. I want to thank my colleague ministers and